Hey folks, see if you've ever had this problem. You're trying to eat a little healthier, but you're in the grocery store aisle, you're looking at packaging, nutrition labels, and they're so confusing, you don't know what's good for you and what's not. Well, this is why I love Thrive Market, my go-to online grocery store for getting all of my healthy essentials delivered, and I don't even have to leave my couch. Finding better options for the whole family is easy with Thrive Market's Healthy Swap Scanner. Just scan a product and it instantly recommends healthier swaps. This is how my wife and I found our new favorite snack, IQ bars. Sometimes I eat one in the morning with my coffee, sometimes just later on in between meals. They also have so many on-site filters that make it simple to shop by the needs of everyone in the family. Maybe you have someone who needs gluten-free food, somebody that has a peanut allergy. Well, no more scouring ingredient labels when you can just filter it all on Thrive Market. My wife and I often use the high protein filter to stock up on things like Sieti chips. Ready to make the switch? Go to thrivemarket.com/TCAT for 30% off your first order, plus a free $60 gift. That's THRIVE market.com/TCATT. thrivemarket.com/TCAT. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 355 of the True Crime All the Time podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me, as always, is my partner in true crime, Mike Gibson. Gibby, how are you?
I'm doing good, man. How about yourself?
I'm doing very well.
Yeah?
Thank you for asking.
Well, you know.
You don't always, and I have to remind you.
I always ask you.
You have not.
No, maybe not on the air.
Yeah, maybe sometimes on Patreon.
Yeah.
You forget to ask me
Yeah,
for
I do.
some reason. But no, normally when we do the actual show, you're very good about that.
Yeah.
Speaking of Patreon, we talked about a couple of true crime stories, talked about the morning show.
We did.
And got into some movies that you were watching.
Yeah.
Some you couldn't remember the names of, who starred in them. It was just a pretty typical Patreon episode.
But it was educational.
Yeah, it's always educational.
Sure.
Hey, let's go ahead and give our Patreon shout outs. We had Jean-Francois Gratton.
Hey, Francois.
Melissa Duran.
What's going on, Melissa?
Gia.
Hey, Gia.
Michelle.
What's up, Michelle?
Eleanor.
There's Eleanor.
Daniel Pruitt.
Hey, Pruitt.
Jedi Master Kara.
Well, I love a Jedi.
Katie Parsons.
What's up, Katie?
Stephanie Rains.
Hey, Rains.
Kim Licata.
Licata.
Kim Panetti.
Well, hey, Panetta.
Talisa Ermshire.
Ooh, Talisa.
Kira Radford jumped out at her highest level.
There's good old Radford.
We had Hell's Bells.
What's up, Hell's Bells?
Sam Mick.
Hey, Sam.
Haley Yeager.
What's going on, Haley?
Shelby Trotz.
There's Shelby.
And last but not least, Elaine McKeon.
Well, thank you, Elaine.
Yeah, thanks for all the new support. And then if we go back into the vault, this week we selected Megan Maddox.
Or M Square.
Or M squared. And so we appreciate the long-term support as well. We had great PayPal donations from Evan Seitz.
Hey, Evan.
And Ann Kelly.
What's going on, Ann?
Yeah, thank you to everyone. Gibbs, right now on True Crime All the Time Unsolved, we have an episode out on the 2006 death of Ray Rivera. Very mysterious. This happened in Baltimore, and, he essentially fell through a roof, but they thought he fell from a much
higher,
greater height.
Right.
They ruled it a suicide, but his family and friends and a lot of people just don't believe it.
Yeah, there's some people thinking that there's some
that way.
Foul play.
Yeah. So we'll get into all of that. Make sure you check it out. All right, buddy. Are you ready to get into this episode of True Crime All the Time?
I'm ready.
We are on to part 2 and the last part on the Lori Vallow Daybell story. In part 1, we covered her family and relationship history, the death of Charles Vallow, and the disappearance of her 2 children, ending with her arrest for desertion and some other charges. And we kind of broke it up in a very specific way. There were some things left hanging for a reason, but we'll clear all of that up in part 2, where we'll talk about the final stages of the investigation, Lori's murder trial, and the court dates for the other people involved in the case. And I'll be honest with you, I got a lot of emails this week about this case. And I think a lot of people, to my surprise, were not familiar with it, had not seen it in the news, maybe as much as I thought that people would have, had not watched the documentary.
It's surprising.
On Netflix. Yeah, it was surprising to me as well. And it's sometimes the reason why when you and I are talking about, which cases to cover, we kind of push some off.
Right.
Because we think, there's too much out there.
Saturated.
It's saturated. It's been covered too much. And this just kind of proved to me that not everybody watches all those documentaries and is glued to the news all the time. So let's jump right in. Right? By April 2020, the authorities were investigating Lori and Chad in relation to Tammy Daybell's death, and they were taking another look at Charles Vallow's death. And really, when you think about it, how could they not?
Yeah, they have to, right?
Let's go back to some of the things from episode 1. Charles is murdered.
Yeah.
It was claimed to be self-defense and this and that. And then all of a sudden, Tammy's murdered. And the next thing you know, their respective spouses are marrying within, a week or so?
Very short period of time.
In a very short period of time. You think about one spouse being murdered and how often that happens. And, we always say the person who's alive, the spouse, they're going to be looked at, probably prime suspect number 1,
of course,
until the point where they're ruled out or whatever. But here it's almost like you've got to throw mama from the train situation. Or what's the original movie that it comes from? The Alfred Hitchcock. I always know Strangers on a Train, maybe. I don't know what it's called.
Yeah, something.
But I know the throw mama from the train one better. But it's not even that, because these two people knew each other. They got married afterwards, right? It's supposed to be two strangers that take care of each other's problems,
right,
so that they're never connected. These, you get married 5 days later or whatever it was, it's just going to be so easy to put together that something's amiss.
Just seems so obvious, right?
Yes. People questioned Alex Cox's self-defense story because it was said that Charles wasn't a violent person. CBS also noted that Charles played baseball in college. So if he really did hit Alex with a bat, he could have seriously injured him. But Alex only had a minor injury.
Yeah, those collegiate baseball players, they can swing that bat, man. They can do some damage.
Do you know a lot of collegiate baseball players?
A few.
Okay.
A couple pros.
No, anybody that is a real hitter.
Yeah.
And if you play college baseball, you got to be good. You're good.
Yeah, you're hitting some balls. Remember our buddy Vinny? He was good with the bat.
He was.
Yeah. For other reasons, though.
Till he got sent upstate.
Yeah. His kneecaps, though. Ooh.
On June 9th, 2020, the FBI, the Rexburg Police, and the Fremont County Sheriff's Office searched Chad Daybell's home and property. They dug in areas of the backyard where Alex Cox's cell phone pinged, and they found human remains buried in shallow graves. I think this is kind of one of the things we left dangling a little bit in episode 1. We talked about Alex's cell phone pinging at Chad's property on certain days. And I'm sure a lot of people made the assumption, and I even said it's going to come into play, but of what that would ultimately mean. On June 10th, the police confirmed that 2 sets of children's remains were found on the property. Chad was arrested that same day and charged with 2 felony counts of concealment, distribution, or alteration of evidence.
Serious charges.
Not murder, but serious charges.
Yes.
On June 13th, the police confirmed that they had found the remains of J.J. Vallow and Tylee Ryan. So, a good part of episode 1, we spent talking about how at a certain point, people stopped seeing JJ.
Right.
They stopped seeing Tylee. Lori even called the school and said that she was going to homeschool JJ. It was foreshadowing that something really bad was going to happen. JJ was buried under a tree, and Tylee was buried in the area called the Pet Cemetery. Prosecutors believe she was buried in the spot that Chad referenced when he texted Tammy about shooting and burying a raccoon on September 9th, 2019, which was the day after Tylee was last seen in Yellowstone.
Wow. Going to refer to her as a raccoon in his text message.
Well, he can't come out and say, right?
Right.
Shot and killed and then buried Tylee. So he's at least trying to be somewhat covert about it.
Yeah, it's just sick, though, thinking about it. And, thinking about what her response was when she received that text. I'm imagining that she probably didn't care, because it doesn't seem like she cared at all throughout this whole process.
Oh, no. And I'm sure we're going to talk about it more. It's hard to believe that she didn't know, right, what he was referring to. It was also said that investigators didn't find a raccoon buried in the area, according to CBS. On June 29th, Lori was charged with conspiracy to commit destruction, alteration, or concealment of evidence. So again, these are charges. Some of these are, pretty serious charges.
Sure they are.
But we're not yet to the point of murder. On August 3rd, 2020, a detective described how investigators discovered the remains at a preliminary hearing for Chad Daybell. According to CBS, Detective Ray Hermosillo said that JJ was found under a layer of fresh sod, under 3 large flat rocks, and a piece of wood paneling. Investigators found a plastic garbage bag over his head, covered with layers of duct tape. His wrists and ankles were bound with duct tape, as well as his forearms and chest. Tylee's remains were dismembered and burned in a fire pit.
This is really sick. To do this to these kids, I'm just kind of lost for words, really.
Yeah, no doubt. It's a very sad description. It's very hard not to paint the picture in your mind, and it's not a good one. In January 2021, the police concluded a review into Joseph Ryan's death. The review started because East Idaho News obtained a recording where Lori talked about wanting to kill her ex-husband. The recording was made 6 months after Joseph died. It was sent to his sister and shared with the police. Okay, so you shouldn't kill anyone. We know that. You definitely shouldn't kill your ex-husband. But if you do, or if you did, why in the world are you putting it on tape?
Yeah.
That you wanted to.
Not the smartest person.
No.
And this whole, if she's going to say, well, I'm killing them because they're evil. They have the dark light.
The zombies, the light and the dark.
It doesn't make any sense. I don't think if you think you're doing good, this would be the good that someone would want you to do. And I also find it very strange that it seems like you end up picking people only in your family.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to come up,
Yeah.
right? Lori told a group of people gathered for the second coming of Christ. He told everybody that I was this lying, crazy Mormon, and got up in court and said all these horrible things about me and turned it around to where the judges believed him instead of me. I went through a lot of years of this kind of hard stuff, and I was going to murder him. I was going to kill him, like the scripture says, like Nephi killed, just to stop the pain and to stop him coming after me and to stop him coming after my children. I just felt I couldn't take it anymore. And I would go through the scriptures and I would find all the things like, if he comes against you once If he comes against you twice, 3 times, then you can kill him. It says it in the scriptures. I was like, there it is. There's my answer. I don't want to do anything wrong. I do not have a murderous heart. I just want it to stop the bleeding and stop the pain. But it was ultimately determined that Joseph Ryan died of natural causes. So, go figure. We have this woman who we know is going to turn out to be a murderer. We said that right up front.
Sure.
She tells a whole congregation that she wanted to murder this guy. He dies, and it turns out that she didn't actually do it.
Yeah, the whole...
Allegedly.
Yeah. The whole shame on you once, shame on me twice, shame on nobody the third time because I'm going to kill you, basically.
Yeah. I think it's fool me once.
Is that what?
Yeah. I don't think it's shame on you once. No, I don't think that's how it goes. But I think everybody understood what you were saying. It took almost a year after JJ and Tylee were found for Lori and Chad to be charged with their deaths. And, it seems like a long time.
It does.
Given all of the things that we know that happened. But you could also kind of make the inference that, well, prosecutors really wanted to make this thing solid. And so they didn't rush into it. And if that's the case, then, okay, kudos to them. Because the last thing in the world that you want is to have a weak case, go to trial, and lose. On May 24th, 2021, Chad and Lori were indicted by a grand jury in Fremont County for 2 counts of first-degree murder for the deaths of Tylee and JJ. Chad was charged with first-degree murder for the death of Tammy Daybell, and both were charged with 2 counts of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder for the children's deaths.
Well, you can't get more serious than that.
No, we kind of said some of the other charges were semi-serious. They were serious, but again, when you're talking about first-degree murder, that's it. Lori was charged with grand theft by deception. The indictment stated that she collected months' worth of Social Security survivor benefits for her children and child care payments after they died. Chad Daybell was charged with 2 counts of insurance fraud. So, it's one of the things that we talked about in episode 1. There was, quite a period of time where police were trying to figure out what happened to JJ and Tylee. They couldn't find them. They were searching for them.
Yeah.
The whole time they were dead.
Meanwhile, they were over in Hawaii sunning it up.
And she was collecting survivor benefits, their survivor benefits,
Yeah.
and using that money to travel and do whatever. On May 27th, 2021, investigators at the Chandler Police Department recommended that prosecutors file a conspiracy charge against Lori in the death of Charles Vallow. And on June 29th, Lori was indicted by an Arizona grand jury for conspiracy to commit murder in the death of Charles Vallow. And Charles kind of went untalked about a little bit in episode 1 after he was killed.
Sure.
But it was for a reason.
Right.
At that point, it was called self-defense. That's what, Alex claimed. The police didn't know anything different. Well, now all of this stuff is coming out.
Yeah, it opens it up all over again. How delusional do you think Lori is?
Today or back when all this happened?
Back when all this was happening.
I think she was pretty delusional.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we'll talk about it more as the episode goes on, but I don't know how, but it seemed like she got so wrapped up into Chad Daybell and, some of his beliefs, his end of days beliefs, that she just became a completely different person to the point where it seems as though she had no problem with murder and all kinds of stuff. That month, the judge found her incompetent to stand trial. She had not entered a plea and her case was put on hold. In August, prosecutors announced that they would seek the death penalty against Chad Daybell.
Well, if he did what they said he did, then that's what he deserves.
Well, again, we've talked about the death penalty argument a lot. Those who don't believe in it, they don't believe in it. If you do believe in it, then you would have to say that this would rise to the level of warranting that type of penalty. In September 2021, the Daybell children spoke publicly for the first time with 48 Hours. They said that they believed their father was innocent and was framed by Alex Cox and Lori. Garth Daybell said the authorities told him that Tammy was asphyxiated. Mark Daybell told 48 Hours, asphyxiation doesn't necessarily mean smothered. According to my understanding, it just means the breath was interrupted, and in the end, she wasn't able to breathe. And according to that, there's more facts we need. We don't just say, oh, well, bye, Chad. No, there's still love. There's still connection. And I think in a lot of these cases where you've got children, especially adult children, so very tough on them, right? Because they have to make a decision.
They do.
Do we believe that in this case, our father intentionally either killed or ordered the death of our mother? And they said no. They stood behind him. But, every child has to make, that decision on their own.
Sure. I mean, this is the most important person in their life outside of their mom, right? Their mom and their dad are the most important people. It's going to be hard to ever believe, unless your dad's a real,
POS and you never had a good relationship with him. But let's say that wasn't the case. Let's say you loved your dad.
Yeah. And he looks at you and says, I didn't do this. I love your mom.
It would be hard.
Absolutely.
In your heart to believe that your dad, whom you love,
right,
would kill your mother. That would be very tough.
Especially if he's sitting there telling you, I didn't do it.
Don't let allergy season slow you down. Get common allergy meds for as little as $15 with GoodRx. So you and your family, pets included, can stop allergy symptoms before they start. GoodRx is free and easy to use. Just search for your prescription on the website or the app, compare prices, and get a free coupon to show your pharmacist. Save at over 70,000 local pharmacies nationwide, including Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Publix, Kroger, and many more. Check GoodRx before every trip to the pharmacy to save up to 80% on both brand and generic medications. And did you know GoodRx rewards you for saving money too? Join GoodRx Rewards today and earn points every time you use a coupon. Remember, GoodRx is not insurance, but works whether you have insurance or not. And it could be your insurance copay price. I've been using GoodRx for years, and I can't tell you how many times I have saved money even with my insurance. Stop allergies before they start and save big on allergy medications this season with GoodRx. Go to goodrx.com/TCAT. That's goodrx.com/TCATT. Once the temps start rising, I realized I was back in the same worn out rotation. Same tank, same shorts, same everything. So I gave my daily uniform an upgrade with Quince. Their pieces are easy, elevated, and somehow make me feel more put together without even trying. Like their 100% European linen shorts and dresses from $30. Luxe swimwear, Italian leather platform sandals, and so much more. The best part, everything with Quince is priced 50 to 80% less than what you'd find at similar brands. By working directly with top artisans and cutting out the middleman, Quince gives you luxury without the markup. And Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices and premium fabrics and finishes. I'm getting ready to stock up on shorts for summer from Quince, and I know they're going to be amazing because everything I've ordered has been of the highest quality, and the prices are amazing. Treat your closet to a little summer glow up with Quince. Go to quince.com/TCAT for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/TCATT to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/TCAT.
At Designer Shoe Warehouse, we believe that shoes are an important part of, well, everything.
From first steps to first dates, from all-nighters to all-time personal bests.
from building pillow forts to building a life.
For all the big and small moments that make up your whole world, DSW is there. And we've got just the shoes. Find a shoe for every you from brands you love at brag-worthy prices at your DSW store or DSW.com.
The Daybell family later told 48 Hours that there was actually a second pet cemetery on the property that wasn't searched. Okay, 2 pet cemeteries.
Yeah, it's a lot of pets. But how's that going to change where we're at with this case?
Well, the only thing that I can think is that they're saying if they found the raccoon referenced in the text message, okay, does that now change things a bit?
Maybe, right?
Maybe. In 2022, Chad's daughter, Emma Murray, told 48 Hours about the human remains, saying, I don't know why they would be there, but I do know that if he were to commit a crime, he wouldn't be foolish enough to put the evidence in his own backyard. And I often think that about a lot of the criminals that we talk about.
I think the same thing, but I think what happens is that they are extremely comfortable with how they do things and that they're just never going to get caught.
Yes.
You
No.
know?
Why would anybody come and search my yard? There'd be no reason to.
And if they did, why would they ever lift these 3 rocks up and pull the sod up right over here? You know?
All 5 of the Daybell children said they believe Chad is innocent and that he didn't know the children were buried on his property. They think it was done to frame him. Emma said that there was time during the day when the property was unattended, which would allow someone to sneak in and bury the remains. She said her dad rarely went outside and that you cannot see the burial site from the house. And again, I think we're just getting back to that same thing, Gibbs, which is, these kids, again, maybe not kids, but they're his kids, not wanting to believe that their dad is a murderer. So
Yeah.
you're looking for all kinds of different ways to kind of say, well, here's how it could have happened. And here's why it couldn't have been him.
Well, it could have happened another way for sure, right? It could have.
Oh, sure.
Unless you have it on tape or you have it in confession, or it could have happened a different way.
Yeah, we're still left with the prosecution proving
Right.
that he did what he did. But that also, I think, is why maybe the raccoon was looked at so heavily, because the text message was kind of damning.
Well, you're right, because it puts him out at the pet cemetery.
Yeah, in his own words, right? In his own text. Now, the fact that they didn't find the raccoon, how does he explain that? How does he square it up? The children also noted that there were lots of remote areas near the house where someone could bury a body, and that, according to them, it was absurd. Chad would bury the bodies in the backyard area. Additionally, because Chad used to be a grave digger, he normally buried his pets in very deep graves, but the children were buried in shallow graves. Okay, I get it. I
Sure.
get what they're trying to do, and I don't blame them at all if they believe that their dad is innocent, which obviously they do.
But we also don't know what happened that day.
No. And just because somebody normally does something with pets doesn't mean that they're going to do the exact same thing with a body. I'm assuming it was not illegal to bury a pet, so you could take your time. And
You got plenty of time, right?
different when you're trying to covertly bury a body and not have somebody see you and you're in a hurry. You might do things a little differently.
Might cut some corners.
On April 11, 2022, Lori was found mentally competent to stand trial. On April 29th, she refused to enter a plea. So the judge entered a not guilty plea on her behalf. And I thought about that for quite a while, trying to figure out what the play there was.
Why wouldn't I want to enter my own plea?
Yeah. Was it a tactic? Did her defense maybe instruct her to do that?
Maybe it's, if ever needed, it could be used in the appeal process.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's the only thing I could think of. On May 4th, it was announced that Lori would qualify for capital punishment if convicted. So
Big news.
puts her in the same category as Chad. On January 7th, 2023, the judge rejected a request from Lori's attorneys that she and Chad be allowed to meet in person and over the phone to discuss strategies and settlement options. Their attorneys presented the request during a motion hearing, asking that the trial be delayed until 2024 and that the death penalty be taken off the table. So this thing's already dragged on for a number of years.
Yeah, too long.
And they're trying to get it pushed another year. In March, the judge granted a motion to sever the two trials.
So they're going to be tried separately.
Yeah, and I was actually kind of surprised. Maybe I shouldn't have been, that they were going to be tried together. It does happen. We've seen it.
Yeah.
During a hearing on March 21st, Judge Stephen Boyce agreed to remove the death penalty as a possibility in Lori's case. Lori's defense argued that if her trial took place in the coming months, they wouldn't have time to fully review a large amount of evidence that had recently been turned in. But it was said that the death penalty still applies to the Chad Daybell case.
I'm a little confused on that.
Well, I'm assuming that that was part of the motion to push the trial into 2024. Hey, we've got all this new information. We need time to review it. The judge said no, but did agree to take the death penalty off the table. Maybe that was a compromise that they all agreed upon. Lori's trial started on April 3rd, 2023. And we mentioned it earlier, right? Lori was charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder, 3 counts of conspiracy to commit murder, and grand theft. 1,800 potential jurors were summoned to the courthouse, and opening statements started on April 10th. 1,800 people in the jury pool.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. You're only picking 12 plus alternates.
Trying to think of that movie with Gene Hackman where they're like trying to get the perfect jury.
Was that called The Juror? No. Runaway Jury.
Yeah, that's it.
There's another movie called The Juror, I think with Alec Baldwin, that's really good too.
Oh, is that good too? Yeah. Same principle?
No.
No.
If not, it would be the same movie.
Yeah.
No, it is not. Prosecuting attorney Lindsay Blake told the court that Lori and Chad used their religious beliefs to persuade the people around them not to question their actions. Their beliefs were also used to justify murder. And we talked about a lot of this in episode 1, right? They got other people to kind of buy in to their beliefs. And part of those beliefs, back to the zombies and the dark and the light, I do believe were used to justify murder. These people need to be killed because they're dark or, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I wonder how those people that joined the cult felt later.
Well, I always kind of question people who join a quote unquote cult and something goes really horrible. Think about Jonestown or Heaven's Gate, or, you can just go down the list. There are survivors who are left to tell the story. And, what do they feel? My assumption is they have to feel pretty good about getting out when they did. And they have to feel horrible about what happened to the people with whom they were very close. According to NBC, Blake said Lori was willing to remove any obstacle in her way and used money, power, and sex to get what she wanted. She also publicly revealed for the first time that Tammy died of asphyxiation at the hands of another, per Court TV.
So really not telling us anything that we didn't already kind of believe, right?
Yes, but now, saying it in court. But does it shock you that Lori was willing to remove any obstacle in her way and use anything at her disposal to get what she wanted?
No, it doesn't surprise me.
Doesn't shock me, surprise me at all. Lori's defense described her as a kind and loving mother who also happened to be interested in religious prophecies about the end of the world. And that's a very calculated statement.
It is.
Who also happened to be interested in religious prophecies. Right? They're kind of putting that on the back burner.
Yeah, wasn't the primary.
No, the primary is she's a kind and loving mother. She just also happens to be into this. It's like saying that you're a podcaster who also likes to play chess,
Right.
but you murdered somebody with the bishop
We said we weren't going to talk about that.
and you're on trial for it. So, I mean, that's kind of a strange statement to make.
Yeah, it really is. And maybe when all this first started, maybe it was like that.
It could have been.
But eventually it flipped.
Yeah, and maybe we'll talk about that more. Was she enamored with this Chad Daybell? I believe she was. Did she then start to kind of think along the same lines that he did? She read his books. She started to believe in the same things that he did, and she changed. I just don't think there's any doubt about that. Defense attorney Jim Archibald told the jury, some people care less about biblical prophecies. Some people care a lot about it. Thankfully, in this country, we get to worship as we choose. And that's true. We do get to worship as we choose. But what is he trying to do with that statement? He's trying to make it about religious freedom.
Yeah.
And to me, this case has nothing to do
No.
with religious freedoms. There is no religious freedom to, murder your children.
No, as long as your religious freedom doesn't harm other people.
Right. So to me, I always analyze these statements because I understand what they're trying to do. But at the same time, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But let's face it, right? The defense is facing a pretty tough battle, an uphill battle. There's a lot of stuff mounted against them. So if we can get the jury to believe that, this is a religious persecution, right? My client is being persecuted because of her religious beliefs. Well, then maybe we can sway them that she's not all bad.
Right. She's just a loving mom that likes her religion.
He also presented Lori's alibis for the 3 murders, arguing that Alex Cox and Chad Daybell acted on their own.
Of course, because if you're going to put her in this light, now you have to tell the jury the other piece, right? Like, so it wasn't her that did this. So it was these 2 that did it. But they're all going to probably do that throughout the trial. Blame the other people.
Well, there's one thing that's certain. 2 children and a loving wife and mother are dead.
Yeah.
So somebody's responsible for that. So as a defense attorney, you have to say it wasn't my client, it was this person.
Yeah. Well,
That person's defense attorney is going to say, hey, it wasn't my client, it was this person.
but maybe that blame game helps the defense in the end, because then you're confusing the jury and they're like, well,
We're not 100% sure. Yeah. I mean, again, at the end of the day, all they're trying to do is raise some reasonable doubt, right? Lori's alibi notice stated that she was at her apartment in Rexburg when her children were killed in Alex's home. He was described as a co-conspirator in the indictment. The notice stated that Lori was in Hawaii when Tammy died. And I'll just throw this out there. Both of those things could be true. But does that mean that Lori was not responsible for the deaths of her children? No. You don't have to be in the same place
nope.
to be responsible. We know that. You could be the one who is directing the whole thing.
Just as guilty.
Later on in the trial, Sergeant David Stubbs testified that Alex Cox's device was the only device present between Chad and Lori's properties on September 8th through the 9th, 2019, and September 22nd through the 23rd, 2019.
Well, he says the device, not the person, right?
That's true. And by device, I believe he means cell phone, right? There's cell phone data showing that Alex Cox's phone was at the property on these days. Jim Archibald also argued that the charges accused Lori of directing, encouraging, assisting, or participating in the murders, which showed that prosecutors didn't actually know what happened. And that could very well be true.
It could.
I think you said it earlier. Unless you've got video of exactly what happened, how can you be 100% sure, who murdered someone or who dug the grave and buried the bodies. Now, the cell phone evidence tells us something. Some of the stuff against Lori tells us something. Some of the stuff against Chad tells us something. But I don't know that it's all that uncommon for prosecutors to go in and not be 100% sure exactly every little thing that happened and how it happened.
No, because it's not always going to be available to them.
No, just can't. On April 10th, Detective Ray Hermosillo testified that JJ's arms were bruised and he had duct tape on his mouth and binding his arms and legs. Tylee's burned remains were put inside a melted bucket and buried on the property. And again, like we said earlier, heartbreaking.
It is.
To think about, how these two died. On April 12th, the jury learned that the investigation of the Brandon Boudreaux shooting gave authorities more information about Lori and Chad's relationship and led investigators to reconsider Tammy's death. On April 13th, Lori's friend Melanie Gibb testified that Lori tried to use her for an alibi when the police were investigating the children's disappearance. She also testified that Lori believed some people were zombies possessed by evil spirits, describing them as light and dark. She believed her kids and Charles Vallow were possessed, and that the only way to get rid of an evil spirit was to kill that person. She also referred to Charles as Ned, which was the name of the evil spirit that supposedly possessed him. Okay, let's just say that the testimony of Melanie Gibb was not beneficial.
Not at all.
To Lori Vallow Daybell. And I think, okay, yes, the zombies being possessed by evil spirits, all of that is what it is. But really, this alibi, when you tell police who are looking for your missing children that they're with your friend Melanie Gibb, and that later turns out to be a lie, that's not going to look good.
Not at all.
According to Melanie, Lori had a hard time taking care of JJ after Charles died. She felt like she didn't have enough time with Chad. She began saying that JJ was possessed when they moved to Idaho.
Oh, so JJ was a burden to her.
Yeah, and I think this is a very interesting revelation. And it brings into question just how real this idea of light and dark spirits and zombies and people being possessed really was, because it makes it sound like it was more of a convenience, right? She wanted to be with Chad Daybell, but JJ was taking up her time. She also probably wanted to get rid of her ex-husband. Right. And so what better way than to convince yourself that they're possessed by evil spirits and that they have to be eliminated. On April 14th, Alex Cox's widow, Zulema Pastinis, testified that Lori and Chad convinced Alex that his divine mission was to protect his sister. And we said it in episode 1, right? Lori viewed her brother Alex as the destroyer. And so, Alex kind of gets into the Lori and Chad doctrination.
Yeah, he buys into it.
He buys into it. Other family members buy into it as well, to the point where they're able to convince him that he has this divine mission.
Yeah.
And if he truly believed that to protect his sister, would he be willing to go to any length?
Well, if he really believed it, then he probably would.
And I think the answer could definitely be yes. Even the smallest step forward can make a big difference in your financial future. When you open a Chime checking account, you're one step closer to a better financial future with no maintenance fees, fee-free overdraft up to $200, or getting paid up to 2 days early with direct deposit. Making progress has never been easier. I think we've all been in that position where we've had an overdraft. Well, with Chime, you can overdraft up to $200 with no fees. That's amazing. And they have over 50,000 fee-free ATMs. Make progress towards a better financial future with Chime. Open your account in 2 minutes at chime.com/TCAT. That's chime.com/TCATT. Chime feels like progress. Banking services and debit card provided by the Bancorp Bank N.A. or Stride Bank N.A., members FDIC. Spot me eligibility requirements and overdraft limits apply. Fees apply at out-of-network ATMs. MyPay eligibility requirements apply. Credit limits range from $20 to $500. $2 fee applies to get funds instantly. Crime checking account required. Go to chime.com/disclosures for details. True Crime All the Time is sponsored by BetterHelp. You know, folks, therapy can feel like a big investment, but let's think about the state of your mind. It's just as important as your physical health. Traditional in-person therapy can cost anywhere from $100 to $250 per session, which adds up really fast. But with BetterHelp Online Therapy, you can save, on average, up to 50% per session. With BetterHelp, you pay a flat fee for weekly sessions, saving you big on cost and time. And you get quality care at a price that makes sense and can help you with anything from anxiety to everyday stress. Your mental health is worth it, and now it's within reach. I've used the BetterHelp service for years. And I love the fact that, I can connect with a therapist in a comfortable spot in my home on my laptop. With over 30,000 therapists, BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform, having served over 5 million people globally. Your well-being is worth it. Visit betterhelp.com/TCAT today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/TCATT.
Hey, listeners, it's Leon Nafok. I'm here to tell you about a brand new series from me and Prologue Projects, an Audible original series called Final Thoughts, Jerry Springer, the story of a television show that changed the world and the man who gave it his name. But did you know that before the Jerry Springer Show made him notorious all over the world, Springer was something else entirely? A respected Midwestern politician, the progressive mayor of a major Rust Belt city, a man many saw as a future leader in Democratic politics. How did this idealistic rising star, with his lofty political ambitions, take a turn in such a radically different direction? You can find the whole series available now on Audible. Just search for Final Thoughts, Jerry Springer on the Audible app, or go to audible.com/Springer.
Zulema met Alex in 2018 through Lori. They got married in 2019. Alex was devoted to his sister, but when he learned about the exhumation of Tammy Daybell, he worried that he would be the fall guy for Lori and Chad.
I think he had good reasons to worry.
I think he did, because I think he knew what role he had played, right, in the things that had happened. And if you're looking at Chad and Lori as kind of con artists rather than really believing in some of these religious prophecies, then what would a good con artist do? They would set it up so that somebody else took the blame. And I think that's what Alex became afraid of. Zulema testified that Lori was charming and convincing. As quoted by Court TV, she believed Lori was in high spiritual standing because Lori said she had direct contact with the angel Moroni from LDS religious texts and Jesus Christ.
Direct contact.
Zulema testified that Lori and Chad's followers received blessings about their past lives and what role they would play in the second coming. Lori and Chad were reportedly interested in Zulema because she was Lori's daughter in a past life who was raped, murdered, and dismembered.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
So there's how many billions of people in the world, Gibbs? People.
I don't know.
What is it, like 6 billion now? I don't know what the number is. What are the chances that this person who happens to become interested in what you're preaching,
right,
was Lori's daughter in a past life? Out of all the billions of people in the world.
I think you have a better odds of winning that Powerball.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably. Zulema said she and other acolytes helped Lori with what she called castings to expel demons from Charles. They also tried to cast out a spirit from Tammy Daybell on the same day. Someone attempted to shoot her at her home. After this casting, Lori received a phone call that made her upset, and she said something to the effect of, "Idiot, can't do anything right by himself. So
Someone missed the shot.
I think, you can make that leap. It's not too hard to do. The prosecution later presented witness Audrey Baratiero, Lori's former friend. Like Zulema, Audrey testified that Lori held sessions to cast evil spirits out of people. Lori believed Tammy Daybell was possessed by an evil spirit. At one point, Audrey lived with Lori in Idaho, but ended the friendship. Lori threatened to cut her up when she left.
Well, that's a good choice that you made leaving. I'm sure she thought Tammy was possessed with the evil spirit because she wanted Tammy's husband.
Well, doesn't that seem to be kind of an ongoing thing? People are possessed by evil spirits because why? They're standing in the way of Lori and Chad being together.
Absolutely.
Whether that's Tammy, whether that's Lori's children. You throw Charles Vallow in there. On April 18th, Lori's son, Colby Ryan, testified that he received text from Tylee's phone after she disappeared, but the tone and punctuation were off, making him believe it was someone pretending to be his sister.
Well, your siblings are going to know if it's not really you.
Well, yeah, siblings, parents, a really good friend, anyone with whom you text a lot.
Yeah.
If you send me a text and say, I'm not feeling great, can we tape tomorrow night? And all the words are spelled correctly.
That's a red flag.
That's a red flag. And I'm like, who has got Gibby's phone?
Right.
And is impersonating him? I'm now worried about you.
I get it, man. If I ever get a text from you that's more than 2 words long, I'm like, why is he so chatty? He's never chatty.
Yeah.
What's going on here?
Yeah, I'm not a big texter. But let's talk about why someone would want to do this. Right? It's not the first case where we've heard this. Sending a text from someone's phone to make it appear as though they are still alive after you know that they're already dead.
Yeah.
It changes the timeline of things, which then could possibly change alibis or the need for alibis.
Sure does. Yeah. Yeah. If done right, it could help a suspect out.
The jury heard a recorded conversation between Ryan and Lori where he accused her of killing JJ and Tylee. This conversation took place after the children's remains were found. As quoted by NBC, Colby asked Lori if she thought she could keep hiding from him. Lori said, "I'm not hiding. Why would you think I'm hiding?" He responded, "Probably because you murdered my siblings. Maybe you should understand." Lori interrupted him saying, "I didn't. I'm sorry you feel that way." She insisted that Colby couldn't know what happened because he wasn't there. She said the kids were happy and everything would become clear in the afterlife. Colby told her to know that they're gone, and you knew. And my phone is being texted by my little sister, who's not even alive. My poor brother, who is the sweetest little kid ever. For what purpose? You tell me this is God's will for my whole family, including my stepfather, to be dead. So, I mean, this is a kid who's pissed.
Yeah. Strong words.
And has every right to be. And I think you can tell from his tone that he doesn't believe his mom at all. Quite the opposite from what we heard of the Daybell kids. They were backing dad.
Yeah.
Colby knows that his mom had something to do with it, and he's horrified by it. Colby testified that Tylee sometimes sent him money, but after she went missing, the money started coming from an account under his mother's name. Again, it just seems like another attempt to make it seem as though, someone is alive when
in fact they're not.
According to NBC, Lori did not report to the Social Security Administration that the children were missing, even though federal law required her to do so. The kids received about $3,800 a month in combined benefits, and Lori received $1,900 a month for Charles's death. Okay, let's add that up. That's like $5,700.
And you didn't have to do the bleep, 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 bleep thing.
No.
Yeah.
That is quite a chunk of change.
That's the big dollar amount. Yeah.
For doing nothing.
Over $60,000 a year.
To not work at all.
Exactly.
Now, I say for doing nothing, but what you had to do to get it was in the life of 3 people. So I'm going to make sure that wasn't taken out of context. On April 19th, Lori's friend April Raymond testified that Lori and Tylee visited her home in early 2019. Lori said Charles was having an affair and she needed a place to stay. When a prosecutor asked April where JJ was at that time, April testified that Lori said she was done with JJ and Charles, and his sister needed to figure it out. So, we have some people, friends of Lori's, who are testifying about her saying some really nasty stuff and incriminating stuff too. At the same time, we mentioned it in episode 1. JJ had autism. So for a mother to say, you know what, I'm done with him. We also mentioned the fact that she gave away his service dog.
Not the mother of the year.
Not the mother of the year at all, but it also points to what? The fact that she knew either he was already not around or he would not be around shortly.
Exactly.
Prosecutors then presented a recording of Lori saying she deserved to find happiness after her children's remains were found.
Wait. She deserves happiness after the remains were found.
Yes.
Okay. I find that really strange.
Well, I'll say this. I think everybody deserves to find happiness. It's the timing of it, right? Right after your kids are found and that's what you're worried about. I need to find happiness.
Well, she does everything really quick. She got married really quick.
Because she deserved to find happiness.
Yeah, but maybe mourn for a little bit,
You would think someone would who lost 2 children. On April 26th, Dr. Garth Warren, a forensic pathologist, testified that JJ was asphyxiated with a plastic bag and duct tape over his mouth. Low levels of GHB were found in his liver. Tylee died from homicide by unspecified means. Dr. Angie Christensen testified that Tylee's remains showed evidence of thermal damage and sharp trauma, according to Court TV. So it doesn't sound good at all. They just couldn't tell exactly how she died. Finally, forensic expert Douglas Halapaska testified that Tylee's remains could have been stabbed or chopped by items such as a knife, machete, hatchet, etc. And it's hard to think that they could have figured it out. She was burnt.
Yeah.
So the jury heard that Alex Cox's latent prints were found on the black plastic bag and duct tape on JJ's body. Tylee's DNA was found on a shovel and a pickaxe in Chad Daybell's shed. So things are adding up.
They are.
Stacking up.
Doesn't mean that Chad had anything to do with it at this point, but...
No, these are things that defense attorneys can try to explain away. It's going to be up to the jury to make a decision whether all of this stuff added together kind of erases the reasonable doubt for them. Prosecutors presented texts between Lori and Chad that discussed an orchestrated plan to take the children, according to CBS. Lori also texted her brother that she was trying to get to the bottom of what we need to do to eliminate them completely. One text from Lori also said that she placed a spiritual virus inside Tylee. So, I think when you add all of it together, it all becomes so very damning, right? These texts saying, well, what do we have to do to eliminate them completely?
Right.
What we need to do to get rid of these children, that does not look good at all. And you have text between Lori and Chad. You have text between Lori and her brother,
Alex, yeah.
So it makes it seem as though all 3 of them are involved.
In cahoots.
In cahoots. On May 1st, Utah's chief medical examiner, Eric Christensen, testified that bruises were found on Tammy's arms and chest, consistent with someone restraining her. He believes she died hours before Chad reported her death. The cause of death was asphyxia, and the manner of death was homicide. In one of the most critical moments of the trial, DNA expert Keely Coleman testified that Lori's hair was found on a piece of duct tape wrapped around JJ's body. Now, there have been a lot of things that we've talked about for the jury to weigh, for them to consider. But think about this one. When you think about a roll of duct tape, how does hair get on the inside of it? Normally, it has to be unrolled.
Sure.
So unless somebody tore the duct tape, found one of her hairs, stuck the duct tape down on it before they, put the bag and the duct tape over JJ's mouth, how does the hair get on there? Now, again, I still think this is something a defense attorney can try to tear down.
Yeah, they can. They can say, well, whoever did this had her hair on them and it fell off while they were duct taping.
Yes.
But you can also say, well, maybe the hair's on there because she was doing the duct taping.
But to me, if it was one thing that the defense had to tear down, okay, maybe they can do that. But when you have to tear down 8, 10, 15 different really, incriminating things, it becomes tougher and tougher.
Yeah, makes it hard.
The defense called no witnesses and Lori didn't testify. That doesn't surprise me at all.
No.
That would not have gone well for her. On May 12, 2023, Lori Vallow Daybell was convicted of 2 counts of first-degree murder, 3 counts of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder for the deaths of her children and Tammy Daybell, and grand theft by deception.
Not a good day for her.
No, really couldn't get any worse other than, if she had gotten the death penalty, I guess. On June 2nd, Chad Daybell's trial date was set for April 1st, 2024. He was granted a change of venue, so his trial will take place in Ada County, Idaho.
Yeah, maybe it'll help him out a little bit.
I doubt it. I got to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I don't know that there's anything that's really going to help him. You never know how a trial is going to go, but this is a little different for us. We don't normally cover cases that are still kind of in flux, but the main person in this case, Lori Vallow Daybell, has been convicted. On July 31st, Lori received 3 consecutive life terms without parole, plus a 10-year sentence for grand theft. She was also ordered to pay over $50,000 in fines, a civil penalty, and restitution. NPR reported that before she was sentenced, Lori spoke in court saying, "Jesus knows me, and Jesus understands me. I mourn with all of you who mourn my children and Tammy. Jesus Christ knows the truth of what happened here. Jesus Christ knows that no one was murdered in this case. I had access to heaven and the spirit world. Since then, I have had many communications from people now living in heaven, including my children." Okay, there is a lot to break down there.
Yeah.
So, number one, Jesus Christ knows the truth. Okay, I understand that. A lot of people believe that. But then to go on and say, no one was murdered in this case, when every single piece of evidence concluded that all 3 of these people, all 4, if you include Charles,
Right,
were murdered. And then she goes on to say that, she has this access, right? Let's go back to Chad, kind of having a foot in both dimensions or 2 different worlds. She's almost saying the same thing. She is able to talk to her children in heaven. Lori said she had a near-death experience in 2002 when she was giving birth to Tylee. Her deceased sister appeared before her, and this experience gave her the power to speak to dead relatives, Jesus, and angels. Lori said, "Because of these communications, I know for a fact that my children are happy and busy in the spirit world."
Whatever you got to tell yourself to make you feel okay with what you did.
And I think if you're a person like Lori Vallow Daybell, whether you want to use the word delusional, I'm almost looking at her as a con artist.
Sure.
In a way, I think those types of individuals can do that much easier than the rest of us. They can convince themselves that, what they're doing is not wrong. What they've done is not wrong. And that if I just keep lying, eventually somebody's going to believe my BS. Per People magazine, she also said, because of my communications with my friend Tammy Daybell, I know she is also very happy and extremely busy.
How insulting to Tammy's
Family.
Yeah, that she would say something like that. Delusion.
I don't believe, your children are happy that they were murdered. I don't believe Tammy is happy that she was murdered.
No.
And that you were involved and ended up stealing her husband, marrying him very, very quickly. I don't think she's happy about any of that.
Yeah, I think if she could haunt your ass, she would.
And if there ever was someone to be haunted and a place for that haunting to occur, Lori in prison in 6x6, 6x9, whatever size cell she's in,
right?
There's nowhere to go.
Nope.
So to be haunted in that small space, that would probably be some justice. In August, Arizona Governor Katie Hobbs signed an extradition request for Lori Vallow. It could be 3 to 6 months before she returns to Arizona to face charges. Lori will face charges, though, for the death of Charles Vallow and the conspiracy to kill Brandon Boudreaux. The state argued that the incident with Brandon was evidence of Lori's plan to target the spouses of her followers to collect their insurance.
Of course, she was greedy. She wanted the money.
Yeah. So it wasn't enough for Lori to get rid of the people who she felt was standing in her way of getting what she wanted. She also wanted the money, right? We know she collected the disability benefits after her children were dead. And now it comes out that part of the plan was to kill off spouses of followers to collect their insurance money. I don't know every word of all the different religious texts out there. I don't think any of them say, that you should kill for insurance proceeds.
Nope.
And kill anyone standing in your way to get what you want.
No, I don't think so.
Brandon testified about how Melanie fell under Lori's influence. He believes Melanie gave the shooter his new address. As we talked about in part 1, the police believe Alex Cox is their suspect. But we also talked about the fact that he's no longer alive. In November 2021, the police recommended attempted murder charges to Maricopa County Attorney's Office against Lori and Chad. It's believed that they orchestrated the shooting. Chad was not charged, and neither was Melanie Pulowski. In September of this year, Lori filed a notice of appeal asking the Idaho Supreme Court to examine her case, verdict, and sentence. So that is as recent as it gets.
Yeah.
Last month.
Happening now.
Yeah. Next year, the public will watch Chad Daybell's trial to see if he is convicted of murder, conspiracy, and insurance fraud. We will also likely see more news about Lori's appeal. So like I said, a little bit different for us because not everything is wrapped up,
right?
But it is for Lori Vallow Daybell, assuming that a higher court doesn't, reverse her conviction or anything like that. I see no reason with what we know now why they would do that. But, and then obviously we'll find out next year what happens to Chad. I find it hard pressed to think that he's going to wiggle out of this. I just think there's too much evidence.
Yeah, I think it's going to be difficult based on her trial alone.
But you'd have to say, Gibbs, the case against Lori Vallow Daybell, it's both fascinating and disturbing for a number of reasons. We talked about her extreme religious beliefs, this cult-like following that she and Chad developed, and the complexities of all the different people who were involved. But for me, the biggest thing was the change in Lori.
Yeah.
people said she was this very normal, loving mother. She was married to Charles for what, 10 years?
Yeah.
And then it seemed like so quickly she jumped head first into this doomsday stuff with Chad.
And was very devoted to him.
Yes. And began to believe that her children needed to be killed because she thought they were possessed by demons. And maybe that's true, but I'm starting to believe that it's more likely that that was just talk.
Yeah.
And that the real reason she wanted them gone was because they were a burden. They were in the way of her being with Chad Daybell.
Yeah. She wanted that life without them.
And she could also collect their money and use it to vacation in Hawaii or whatever she wanted to do.
Yeah.
It's such a horrible story.
It really is. It's nightmarish.
Moms kill. It's a sad fact. We know it. We've covered it.
We have.
Now, this one had a lot of bizarre twists and turns and, a lot of people involved alongside of her. And I think that helped capture the attention, right? Or the imagination of people. How do you get all of these people to go along with you? A question we've asked many times. But if you're promoting this kind of cult-like prophecy stuff,
Yep.
then does it become a little easier to get people to go along with you and to buy into why certain people need to be eliminated?
And think she's still buying into what happened.
Oh, yeah.
She's saying, hey, I talked to them. They're good. They're happy.
They're busy.
They're busy.
She said that. I thought that was so odd.
Doing the work that needs to be done.
They're busy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, that's our episode on Lori Vallow Daybell. We got some voicemails, Gibbs. You want to check those out?
Let's hear them.
Hi, Mike and Gibby. My name is Ricky, and I'm calling from California. I just want to let you know that I love your guys' podcast. You guys are absolutely unmatched. It's hilarious. I love to listen to you guys in the morning and then when I'm going to the gym, and I look like a crazy person because you guys have me laughing by myself. But you guys are just awesome, and just keep up the good work and keep your own time ticking. Thanks, guys.
Hey, have you heard our morning radio show yet?
What's it called?
Called W. Gibby. I don't know.
W. Gibby. You really thought you were going to come up with something.
I was like, I was straight.
I thought you were going to say, hey, Ricky, you're so fine. You're so fine. You blow my mind. Hey, Ricky.
Yeah, I'm not allowed to sing. It's not in my
contract. But you didn't come up with that.
Yeah.
Hey, Mike and Gibby. My name is Karina. I discovered your podcast probably a month ago, and I'm already on episode 147. And I'm a Patreon supporter. Absolutely love your show. One of my favorite things about you guys is your vibe and just your back and forth. Definitely keep it up. I do have another suggestion for a case. It is the Ocean City, Maryland murder couple by the last name of Cypress. I've lived in the area for quite some time, and I've always loved true crime, and I only found out about this case about a month ago, and I am literally refusing to read anything about it until you do a podcast on it, because I really want to hear the stories from you guys. Thank you for everything you do, and keep your own time ticking.
Well, how good does that make you feel?
Pretty damn good.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with that, but definitely need to check it out. I mean, she's got to hear the story, so
well, maybe
that means we got to do it.
By the time she gets up, where she's at 147 now or something.
Yeah,
like
that's true. Maybe it'll.
She got about 200 episodes to go. But maybe by the time she gets there.
Well, it depends on some of these people can binge like
I know.
Nobody's business.
I like that though.
Oh, I do too.
Binge away.
Hey, Mike and Gibby, this is Jason from St. Paul, Minnesota. Long-time listener, first-time caller. I was just listening to the episode from January on T. Eugene Thompson, and a couple of things. The reference about his place of birth, actually both findagrave.com and the New York Times were correct. The New York Times referenced the county, Blue Earth, that he was born in. And as y'all were going through the episode and the part of St. Paul where T. Eugene and his wife bought their house is I was actually driving through that area, and to give you an idea of how ritzy that area is, that is actually the same part of St. Paul where the governor's mansion is at. And later on in the episode, you mentioned that he went up to Forest Lake as I was getting off at the exit on 35 to go stop at the gas station in Forest Lake. Kind of creepy, kind of odd. Well, keep your head on a swivel, and Team TCAP.
Man, that's awesome.
Yeah, it is. And I've heard that before. People have emailed in and said, I was listening to this episode. It occurred around me. And the next thing you know, I'm driving past such and such.
Yeah.
And you're talking about this is where this happened. And that is kind of strange, really, if you think about it.
It's happened to me on some of the unsolved cases we've done. I'm like, I was there. I remember that field, or I remember that house because I drove by it.
Yeah, but you're just having a flashback. That's totally different.
Is that what that is?
Yeah.
Oh, erase that.
No, I will not. All right, buddy. That is it for another episode of True Crime All the Time. So for Mike
and Gibby,
stay safe and keep your own time ticking.
How did the internet go from this?
You could actually find what you were looking for right away, bang,
to this.
I feel like I'm in hell.
Spoiler alert, it was not an accident. I'm Cory Doctorow, host of Who Broke the Internet from CBC's Understood. In this 4-part series, I'm going to tell you why the internet sucks now, whose fault it is, and my plan to fix it. Find Who Broke the Internet on whatever terrible app you get your podcasts.